Welcome back to another episode of Decks of Wisdom, where we share stories that inspire, reimagine purpose, and living a life that makes you unretireable. Today's episode is a special one. It was recorded back in 2024 as a part of series of interviews for my upcoming book. And the moment I finished this conversation, I knew it had to become a podcast too, because the insights, the end are simply too powerful not to share with you. My guest today is Nan Ives, a former senior leader at Fidelity Investments with nearly 3 decades of experience helping people plan for their retirement financial. But when Nan accepted an early retirement package at 59, what followed wasn't the dream scenario of Cape Cod weekends and endless free time. Instead, she found herself facing a push she hasn't prepared for. I've got time, I've got money, but what do I do with this, and do I have focus? In her words, that's a third of your life. So what do you do with it? Nan's story was recently featured in Fortune magazine, where she shared how the retirement honeymoon was off quickly and how the void led her to co-create something remarkable, the future of you, a human-centered, design thinking based platform helping people discover who they want to become in their third act. In this conversation, you will hear what no one tells you about the emotional toll of retirement, how Nan turned personal uncertainty into purpose driven business, the 4-step framework she developed after listening to over 50 retirees, and how you too can start retiring before you retire by designing your life or for your big intention. This is not a conversation about finances. It's a conversation about identity, meaning, reimagining, and becoming unretired. So grab your coffee, take a walk, or find a quiet spot and enjoy this candid, powerful, and deeply inspiring conversation with Nan Ives.
Nan, thank you very much, and thank you for accepting my invitation to be interviewed for my book. It's really an honor for me to have such a senior and experienced person from the other side of the globe for interviewing me for my book. In fact, you are one of the first people I'm interviewing for my book, and it will set the tone, and I'm sure your experiences will be very invalid. Yeah, could you give a little bit background of the work you are doing with your company, the future of you, and how you started this business?
I worked in financial services for all of my life. So,
Mm.
I worked at Fidelity Investments, which was called America's Retirement Company. And every day I went to work, I talked about retirement. And it was always about having a financial plan to ensure that you have money to live when you're not working anymore. And so I was offered an early retirement and took advantage of it, and then went off and had a lot of fun. I played golf, I traveled, and then I kinda realized, like, "Wait a second, this is a big it's a third of my life, and I don't really have a plan for how I'm gonna find purpose. What's the right balance? Can I continue to learn and grow?" And so, another friend of mine, a colleague and friend, got together and started to get really curious about, like, how do people change or reinvent their life in retirement? Because there's no roadmap for any of this. It's really all been about finances, and no one really talks about life planning and what do you do to sort of ensure you have purpose and what gets you out of bed in the morning. And I get people want to go, do yoga and get in shape and just have some free time, but that's a lot of free time going from a very busy schedule to an empty calendar. So my partner and I went out and interviewed 50 people, and we used the methods of design thinking to sort of immerse ourselves in the experiences of people who were planning for retirement and living in retirement. And what we found is there was a large spectrum. First of all, we were like, is this a problem? Do people have a hard time figuring out life? Is it just us? Are there other people? And we found it, yes, that people do. Some people really struggle and don't really get into a new stride in life. And so we found people who were kind of unsettled and unsatisfied in retirement. And then on the other spectrum, we found these people who had completely transformed. They were using their skills and experiences in a whole new way and doing things that are really interesting, becoming an author or hosting a radio show or making cheese or whatever it is. They were oystering, like whatever it was, they were just doing something that they absolutely loved, and they were using their gifts and their passions. And so we kind of took the learnings from those people who had transformed and put together a four-step process to help people begin to think about how is your life going to shift and what do you want to do to sort of replace 40, 50, 60 hours of work that you've been doing for, decades. What does your life look like? So we really have created a platform for life planning and retirement.
Wonderful. I think this is what it ignited me also, is because I was also professionally working in finance and also in retirement, setting up retirement pension fund for the first time in Maldives. And I was also more worried when it comes to retirement, all this thinking about that it is being financially independent or financial freedom during your retirement. But then when I at certain point of my life, certain instances also happened, and then I realized retirement is not only about being financially free. So, Nan, can you tell me what was your initial understanding of retirement? Like what I said with me, and what was your view on the retirement before you decided uh, to be unretired, if I would say.
I think I had a pretty stereotypical view of retirement. We always say it's the three G's: golf, grandkids, and gardening. Like, so it was about recreation, about free time. I kind of thought that I would figure out something to do that would give me meaning and purpose, but I didn't really know what that was. So I think, it was I have free time. I've worked for a really long time. I've earned this. Um, and so that was kind of, I didn't really have that much of a view of what life would look like and didn't really give much thought. I just thought I would figure it out. And so when I realized like there needs to be more to it, and I felt like I had a lot of gas in the tank, and I was kind of, even though I worked at a big company, I had kind of entrepreneurial sort of tendencies. This would be a really interesting thing to study and potentially turn into a business because we learned from all of those interviews that it is people have a hard time and people don't plan for it. Most people spend more time planning like a 2-week vacation than they do 30 years of their lives. And that's an insight that is really, stuck with me, that there's nobody, a lot of people don't really think about it. Although there are a lot of questions that people have. Am I going to be bored? How will I get purpose? What's my life look like? So they have questions, but they don't really have a lot of answers, and they go out and try to figure it out. And some people do, and some people struggle. But it
Yeah.
takes some time.
Definitely. I think many people don't really think about retirement unless it is really late, right? I think coming you personally coming from the retirement background and financial advisory and things like that, you must have already planned your retirement before you really retired. I read that you took an early retirement package from your company and then you retired, right? So now, what were you planning? Uh, During that process of retirement planning, what were you actually planning to do during your retirement?
Um, I don't know. I was gonna play golf, and I was gonna travel and, spend time on Cape Cod, where I am right now. But I really didn't think much about it. I thought I would maybe, get some consulting gigs, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like. When I realized I didn't wanna go back to what I had done before, and so I wanted to do something completely different, and that was sort of an interesting epiphany. And part of my early retirement, I worked with a coach. That coach was kind of a career coach and kept talking about updating my LinkedIn profile and, you know, kind of looking for a job, and I'm like, I don't really think I want a job. So it was an interesting evolution to see that, even somebody who was helping me was guiding me from a career standpoint to get another job. That's not what I wanted to do. But I kept saying, I'm not sure really what I want to do. I know I want to do something, but it's not clear to me what that is. And I did have a few times where people hired me to do some gigs, and I was like, why am I doing this? This doesn't fulfill me. This isn't giving me joy. So, that I did have a few that were like failures that like I thought, okay. But the good news is I could, close that chapter and move on. But it wasn't crystal clear exactly what I was going to do.
I think you are not an exemption to. I mean, many people who are taking this transition in their life. What were your feelings? What were what was going through in your head during that stage of your career when you were planning, when you knew it's time for retirement?
You mean before I actually left the workforce? I think I was just tired. I'd worked for the same company for 27 years. Um, it was a fantastic. I had a lot of great roles, but I was just tired. I was ready for a break. I was ready to not have the alarm clock go. Hold off. Sorry. Hold on one second. Okay. Sorry. That's okay.
It's fine.
Sorry about that. Um, so, I was ready for a a break, and that was really what was going through my head is I was tired. I didn't wanna, it's a grind, doing it for as long as I did it, and I wanted something different. I wanted a little more freedom in my schedule, um, and that was really where I felt that it was time to do something else, but I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. So basically, you are going through confusion and with uncertainty in your head, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when is this moment, or what really ignited you to actually think that you don't want to be retired? You need to do something meaningful in your life. Can you describe that moment? How that came about?
I think I was talking with other friends who had left and didn't there were several of us who just didn't feel like we knew what was next. I also saw a few of my friends who retired who went back to like kind of a job immediately. Like they might have retired for 6 months, and next thing you know, they're getting another job. I saw other friends who went back and did like consulting work you know, on what they always did in their lives, but they didn't seem that, happy about doing it. It just was filling that time. And so I think there was a lot of like, I kind of lifted my head and looked around and saw what other people were doing. And then conversations with, because there was a lot of us who took an early retirement. There was a couple thousand of us. So having conversations with all sorts of people feeling almost exactly the same made us, my business partner and I, realize like this is really is a bigger thing than anyone ever talks about. And why doesn't anyone talk about this? Why does this I think we have this utopias view of what retirement is, and it's going to be the best part of your life. But when you look at the statistics, the American Retirement Institute said that almost 30% of people say life is worse in retirement. There's some real depression stats there as well. And then in AARP did a study that said 58% of people didn't even think about how they were gonna get fulfillment, and, they didn't think about their emotional health. So, like, you've got, like, people in retirement who are saying life is worse, but there's no planning aspect to it. So those were some interesting stats that really got us opening our eyes to, like, this is a big problem, and it needs to get more talked about and out in the open. And it's interesting because now that we started doing this work, there's more books that are being written, and you're writing one. So it definitely is kind of opened up the conversation on, or people are actually starting to talk about retirement as being a hard life transition instead of this utopias, you know, you don't ever have to work again. So that's a great stage in your life.
Yeah. Uh, why? What do you think of this transition? Why people are trying to talk or think more about that? Is it because of uh, people's healthy lifespan is increasing, or what is the reason actually for people more worried about their retirement years now?
I think a couple reasons. I think people are living longer, they're living healthier lives. I also think that the baby boomer generation redefined careers, so they were one of the hardest working generations ever. Yeah, their career was really important to them. So, having that taken away, and there's a lot of people. There's, 10,000 people a day turn 65, and that's going to continue until 2030. That's 28 million people just in the United States in the next, 5 years. It's a lot of people who are hitting this milestone and realizing it. So, um, it's been interesting to look at it from our lens to see that, yeah, a lot more people are struggling with it. And I think that's why, because people were really focused on building their careers, um, and also at the same time, a lot of people end up at empty nesters. So you're busy, busy, busy. You're working on it, your job, your career. You're raising your kids, and one day it all just goes away.
Yeah. Uh, you you talked about how your friends and colleagues and those who retired with you, uh, which made you to look into um, what retirement would be like, or how you're going to do it. Um, do you remember what actually really changed your view of retirement? From
Say that again.
what really what was the time which really, or what really hit you? Is there any other than your this study or interviews, uh, was there any moment or anything which made you really deeply realize that you need to unretire, or retirement is not supposed to be not doing anything?
I think I played 55 rounds of golf in one summer, and, every day I'm talking about what everyone's talking about what shot they hit yesterday, and I was, like, thinking, "Well, I love golf, and I still wanna play golf, but it doesn't feel like it's not fulfilling to me to just play as much golf as I possibly can." So, I think it was really just like "Okay, I'm filling my time with leisure activities, but I don't have anything else sort of in my life portfolio to focus on."
Yeah. So, what uh, I guess now what you are pursuing is your passion, isn't it?
Say that
Uh,
again?
what you are pursuing currently is your passion, isn't it? You must be very passionate about the work you are doing at the moment.
Yeah, we are. And because
Yeah.
we understand, we get people to we help people. I mean, we had a woman in our first workshop who was kind of, am I going to retire? Am I going to get another job at that same crossroads that we've been at? And we do sort of we do this purpose work, and then we have people generate ideas for other people. And she kept talking about, well, she loved to coach, she loved to mentor, she mentors her son's friends as they get out of college to like go help them get jobs. And and then she kept saying, "But then I can go back and be a salesperson." And so she was hesitant about, like, what it was, and everyone in this class said, "Why don't you go mentor kids
Mhm.
coming out of college? What a great sort of, niche for you, you're passionate about it." she went back and got another job, and then 9 months later, she called us and said, "I'm starting my own business, and I'm gonna go coach kids coming out of college," and she started Next Up Careers, and so when you see that you see people, like, struggling with, "What am I gonna do?" Kinda retreating back to the things that they've always done, but then come up with this idea and passion and move it forward, and she's so passionate about what she's doing and successful that you kinda get really excited about helping other people do the same thing. And it doesn't mean people go off and start their own businesses, but, we've had people who are, um, wanna go somebody wanted to, like, create like a gift giving sort of platform where they love to give gifts. Somebody else liked wine and they wanted to do wine dinners. Somebody else loved to garden and they're doing like farm to table dinners and they love to cook at their home and they connect it to a local nonprofit. So, it just starts to like whatever gets you excited and you have an idea that you want to pursue, that kind of gets us really jazzed about this work we're doing.
Yeah. It's amazing that some people are turning these uh, last few decades of their life into really exciting journey, which they were not able to identify before. You also touch based on how you the process, how you change this passion of yours, or the identifying the passion. And could you tell how you because a passion, I guess a passion alone is not enough, right? Because that has to also give you some returns in some way. For There has to be some level of fulfillment or some financial returns for you to keep going on that. So how did you turn this into a sustainable career?
Till a sustainable what?
Sustainable career for you, which you are doing now, or passion.
Carrier. I'm not sure I understand what sustainable carrier is.
Yeah, what I mean is now, you are doing this as a business, or so. So, what is the process you went through to turn that idea into something which you could do till the last day of your life, right?
Yeah. Okay, good question. So what happened was after we did these 50 interviews and realized like, oh, there is a formula for this and there's something that we could help people do. We literally went out on LinkedIn and said, does anyone want to do a 6-week workshop? We're going to create a prototype together. We didn't have the content. We didn't know if anyone would sign up. And within a day, we wanted 10 people. We had 14 people. And so we actually co-created a workshop with end users week to week and brought content and said, "Does this work? What do you think about this?" And we did that 3 times. So we did it with, a group of 12 people 3 times, and by the end, we were like, "Okay, this is a formula that sticks." So it was an iterative process following I don't know if you know design thinking, but it's all about, prototyping with end users, and so that's how we ended up doing it. And that's when we knew, like, wow, this is really is a thing, and I had some very senior people join us who were struggling with what's next, and they had the financial piece was completely, a non-issue for them, but they didn't know what was next. And so that's when we realized, like, this is a problem, and we can solve it by helping people in a workshop. And then we took that workshop and made it into a digital course as well.
Wonderful. Uh, do you believe that you are retirement proof now?
Retirement proof. What does that mean? I'm not sure I know what that means.
It's what I mean by is that you could continue doing this without, retiring from what you are doing now.
I could do this for a long time. I think this is, and the thing I think that's also really good is both of us have maintained balance in our lives. So it's not like I've given up my golf. It's, we're doing this at a pace that works for us at this stage in our lives. So we're not working 100 hours a week trying to get this thing going. We are moving it along at a very good
Mm.
pace, but a pace that works for us at this stage in our lives.
Wonderful. What motivates you keep going on this, doing this work?
I think helping people, realizing that this is a problem and helping people. Yeah, I think the hard part is that a lot of people don't admit it. That's the challenge is that people think I've got this covered. I'm going to just retire. This is not a problem for me. And we always think there's like a truth telling piece to this to get people to really admit like this is a significant life transition. And with, if you're not going to plan it, how are you going to spend your time? And people will say I'm going to golf and I'm going to travel and I'm going to spend time with my grandkids and I'm gonna garden, and we say that's fantastic. Can you fill, uh, is that gonna be enough of what you do every day? And a woman that I worked for, kinda was doing that at first, now she's doing pottery, and she's loving it. So, the people sorta get there, but we wanna help sort of, facilitate, jumpstart it much quicker.
Yeah, I think it because retirement creates a void, right, in your life. So you need something mm, to fill that void, like the lady you mentioned who
Yeah.
filled it with poetry, right? Um, what was the main challenge you came across when you wanted to start over again?
Um I think what I just said is that people don't admit that retirement is a hard thing. They think they've got it all set, Um, and so that's probably the hardest thing is just getting people to be honest about this life transition. And it doesn't mean, it's just hard. And I think especially when people really identify with their careers, I think the other thing we found is there's a lot of people who are continuing to work even though they have the financial means and they don't want to stop because they don't know what's next. So I think that's the hardest part is to get people to realize like, um, this is a huge life transition. And it's, if you want to live it well and have meaning and purpose, you do have to do some planning and try new things. I mean, we also try to get people to do new things, so something completely different than what you ever did in the past. So can you find those little ideas and create little experiments to get going? But it's, people have a very narrow stereotypical view of what retirement is. And so I think that's the challenge is to get people to sort of realize like it's hard and there's so many things you can do.
Well,
You're probably not even thinking of
can
them.
that view of people is because of how we have been taught what retirement is?
Um, yeah, I think it's just that's exactly correct, is that people are, um, if you go back, decades, people weren't living that long. So people are living to 100. I'm sure somebody knows somebody who's well in their 90s,
Yeah.
and lived healthy lives up until 90. I know somebody who just died at 99 and a half. Um, and quality of life was great up until the last couple of years. So, that's the first big change. But if you think about the stereotype of walking on the beach and early bird specials and bingo, like that doesn't fit anymore. That's a dated view of retirement. And with longer lifespans, it's a different world.
Yeah, exactly. So how this transition of you getting unretired again um, has impacted your personal life and your relationships?
Um, not, I don't think it really has because again, I don't think I'm like we're not working 100 hours. We're not, we're doing this at a pace and with balance. So, um, I don't think it really has. I think some of the things that are interesting is, some people who are like not, retired keep asking me, "How many hours are you working? Like this is a chore." And it's like, I don't even count my hours. I'm having fun. I'm learning. If we don't know how to do something, we go out and learn how to do it. It's amazing. I always say there's the democratization of tech that you can go out and get platforms and learn how to do things. I've learned how to edit videos. I use Fiverr all the time for marketing. Like, it is amazing how much you can learn. And so when you're learning, you're not counting your hours. You're learning, you're growing.
Yeah, I think that is very important because our brain, to keep our brain young, we need to keep feeding it with information and new challenges,
Definitely.
right? So, uh, Nan, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to make their self retirement proof? What I call is because what I'm coming from is actually to advise people who are in their mid career or mainly in their mid career to find a passion and hang on to it so they don't have to retire in their life. So, with your experience, what would be your advice for such people?
We always say start retiring before you retire. So you just said it, like, what are the things that you could start to investigate and get curious about and maybe want to pursue in this next stage so that when you do, scale back your work, you already know what you're going to do. So it's sort of, we do this work called rebalance your life portfolio, and we look at 5 segments of your life and sort of do that work before you actually leave the workforce. Like, do you want to volunteer? How are you getting professional development, leisure, family and friends, and work, if any? Because some people might want to do some work, but to start to really evaluate and analyze those sectors before you actually wake up one day with an empty calendar and a lot of free time.
Sure. Uh, in your experience, what are the main misconceptions people are having about? You already mentioned about people having a very narrow view of what retirement is, and they are only looking at being financially independent and then spending time with playing golf, watching TV, and traveling around. That was the view I think main people you already mentioned about it. So, what are the misconceptions people are having about retirement and specifically about pursuing a career or uh, something which they are passionate, which they can carry on? So, why many people not actually do that?
I think because I think the misconception is that you can figure it out on your own and that or that you will be fulfilled doing stereotypical things. And it doesn't mean you're not going to do those things, but I think the misconception is like like it's all about fun and leisure. Like that's kind of how it's been, it's your fun time. It's the golden years. And that the misconception is that you probably wanna do something that gets you out of bed in the morning and gets you excited to do. And, traveling for a couple weeks a year, there's another 48 weeks of the year, whatever, how many weeks you wanna travel. What are you gonna do with it? So I think it's the misconception that travel and leisure time is gonna fill you up and give you purpose.
Yeah, I think you are right. So, the other thing which I want to ask you is along your way, you already mentioned about the democratization of technology and the accessibility from everybody from across the world. The beauty is we have on this part of the world we have the same technology access to what you have in US and in Europe and other parts of the world. So is there any specific tips or any resources which you would recommend which has helped you to somebody who want to follow the similar kind of path which you have followed in your unretirement journey?
Um, there's people like us out there, certainly we have a lot of resources out there. There's some books out there, but to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot out. So, you writing a book is fantastic. Because there are retirement coaches. I think having people have a life coach is really important. Certainly we do that work as well. Like, but r- right now there's not like a plethora of resources that are out there.
Yeah, actually, when you mentioned about life coaching, I'm also an ICF certified coach, and for the first time, we are bringing it to Maldives. And I think this is. I also feel that retirement plan, retirement coaching is something actually even executive coach can specialize in. It's a
Yes, definitely.
area where there's a lack of resources at the moment in the world.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just spoke with a retirement coach who's in her mid 70s, and she said about 15 years ago, she just started a group called Boomers, whatever it was. And she had all these people signed up. And so that's when, so that was 15 years ago she was doing that. Um, but yeah, I think that this whole life coaching around what do you want to do and being very deliberate about your life plan instead of thinking that it's all just going to fall into place or I can figure it out. I'll figure this out. Because what you're going to end up doing is probably falling back on things you used to do that might not give you a lot of purpose or joy.
With your experience, when do you think if somebody is seriously need to think about at what stage of their career they need to actually start looking at having a life coach, getting this very clear? At what stage of their career do you think they need to start working on this?
Um, the I think 1 to 3 years out. So I think it's like, maybe 5, but I think part of it is if you're working a lot, you might have time, not time, but I think 1 to 3 years out is the right amount of time.
You mean 1 to 3 years of working for someone, right?
Um, what yeah, 1 to 3 years before you actually leave.
And leave employment.
Yes,
Somebody
exactly.
Yeah, because I also have seen some people who are doing their own business. They want to hand over to, for example, if they are doing some kind of business or service business, they want to hand over to their children and then move on, live a so-called retirement life. So for those kind of people, what will be the time you think? To
Say that again?
the people who are doing their own business, sometimes they also think of retirement, right? Handing over that to their children or selling off their business
Yeah.
and then living a retirement life. So for them also, would it be like 3 years or 5 years ahead of their decision?
Yeah, it's funny, there was an article in the New York Times this summer about couples who had retired, and there was one gentleman that they interviewed who had spent the last 5 years trying to sell off his business, and he never thought about what he was gonna do, and his wife was concerned because he was watching, cat videos on YouTube. So I think there's a different dynamic if you have your own business and you're thinking about, how do you transition your business and then plan for your life? I do think some of those people it depends. If you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you might have natural curiosity about what you wanna do next, so that might be easier for some of those folks. We mostly work with people who are working for someone else in some kind of, corporate job, or in academia, and it's a different type of person. So most of our work is done within we do this work with corporations to help their employees get ready for what's next, but haven't really done a lot with sort of entrepreneurs and solo business owners.
Yeah. Um, what do you experience after we talk about what your experience or what your feelings were before you retired and during the process of retirement, but after you became unretired, what was the moments of can you share with us some moments of joy or excitement or fulfillment experience which you had after you started your current work?
I think just the enthusiasm we had from people who were like, we get a lot of people, we've spoke at conferences, we get a lot of like, oh my God, you guys are on to something. So I think the joy is really like you're doing something that, like somebody said, your category creating. You're doing something that no one has done before, which is, comes with great joy, some challenges, but I think it's that like, wow, we're doing something that's really innovative, really different. It's also we've used, the design thinking, which I'm really passionate about. So the fact that we actually followed the methodology that um, I was trained on at Fidelity is gave great joy, and the fact that we get so many accolades and get asked to speak it many times and interviewed for books, but it's that's what it is. It's like doing something that's unique and different and needed.
Yeah. So, do you think that being unretired has brought your life more purpose and overall happiness and well-being?
Being has given me more purpose.
I mean,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. How would you define your well-being and compared to use after retirement? There was a period you haven't done anything and or anything like this, and after you start like this, how you would define your overall well-being? If you
Oh,
compare those two.
really positive. I mean, I work out with a personal trainer. I, do yoga. Yeah, so um I feel like I have, my well-being is really positive because again, and there are times when I will think like, wait a second, maybe I'm doing too much work and not enough with my family and my friends or so I'm constantly using the tools that we created to sort of look at my life and say what's off kilter right now and how do I be deliberate about replacing whatever that is with um, something that that brings me purpose and joy.
Wonderful. So, what are you doing to ensure that you are this? You also mentioned that continuous learning is what you are doing, which keeps you, I mean, updated and more informed and things like that. So, what are if you can suggest some ways, somebody who want to pursue their passion and not retire, uh, what are the ways they can continuously grow and evolve? Do you think?
We think you need to have like small experiments. Like, what are the small things you can do to try? Because you don't have to go and say, "Oh, I'm gonna like start a business or whatever it is, or go on a board." Like, just take baby steps and try things out because you do have the freedom and flexibility of time that you don't have to really commit somebody, but that sort of experiment. I'm going to do small experiments to see if it works. If it works, I'm going to continue to do it. If it doesn't work, I'm going to shut it down and move on and learn that that's not what I want to do. So I think it's that curiosity and experimentation really does get you to sort of explore a lot of different things. And don't say I'm too old, I can't do this, I can't learn. You're never too old to do anything. And we learned that from a lot of those people who had transformed is that there is this natural curiosity and experimentation and then the mindset of I'm not too old to do anything. And so, having the right mindset and then going out and just trying new things.
Wonderful. When you mentioned about mindset, I'm a huge advocate of growth mindset.
Yep.
We
Yep. We do growth and fixed mindset. Absolutely. Yeah.
so I think it's very relevant to have a growth mindset at any age. Like you mentioned, age is just a number, right? When it comes to
Yeah.
pursuing your passion. So, what are your future goals and aspirations? Do you really look at a long-term view from now on?
Do I look at a long-term what?
Long-term view of your career or your life? What are your future aspirations other than what you are doing now?
You
Or
know what? I think that, I don't really think that much about the future. I think about sort of what am I gonna do in the next week or month. So, um, because I think if you start to plan like what's gonna happen and it doesn't happen, you're disappointed. So I'm kind of deliberate about kind of staying in the present and thinking about, the next couple weeks versus the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, because living in the moment is more important than worrying about the future, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So, how did you see the concept of retirement evolving in the future, and especially for those pursuing their uh, passion and those who are not pursuing their passion, and how this is evolving in the future? Because as you mentioned, a lot of people are having a very narrow view of retirement before, and now, since more people have started speaking about this, and people are opening up about this. So, what do you think this will lead to in the future, and how people will view retirement in the future?
I hope that people will start to, you know, start to actually engage with professionals and get some life planning and be very deliberate about what this next chapter looks like and do really interesting things so that, I've met people who have said, "Oh, I'm retired, but I used to be a CPA or I worked here." And so everyone's talking about their careers. I'd love to see how people have just that's a one stage in your life. Like, what's the new stage? And here's what I'm doing. And you see joy in their responses versus talking about what they used to do. So, a future focused versus sort of hanging on to the past.
Or yeah. What do you think about the future generations? Because generations, like for example, Gen X or Gen Z or Gen Y, or they will have a totally different view of their career as baby boomers, right? So, what do you think for them retirement? What will mean by retirement for them?
I don't know if I'm hoping that this just continues and people look at this as a deliberate chapter in their lives. I think if you think about any generation has had a roadmap, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, maybe you raise a family, and then you retire. And so but all of those things are kind of calculated and then it's the big unknown and a lot of free time. So I hope that people continue to think that this is a time that they do need to plan and that it's that they can do anything they want.
In they want, yeah, because they get that freedom of time and time mainly, right? So, what do you think the society at large, or organizations specifically, need to the corporate world need to actually, what they can do to support the individuals or the employees, their employees who are currently working to pursue a passion and become retirement proof, what I call is to become retirement proof during later part of their years. So, what could the corporates could do actually?
We actually have a workshop that we do with corporations,
Mhm.
and we do webinars and coaching. But we're finding that corporations who embrace helping their experience, what do you call them? Experience rich legacy employees. If you help them, they're gonna be big assets to you, like, you're gonna be able to help train the next generation of leaders. A lot of them don't even wanna keep doing maybe the big job they have, they wanna do something different, so it's kinda getting that retirement conversation out in the open, and then reaping the benefits of, you've got seasoned professionals that sometimes when they give notice, they just, no one talks to them again, or they're going to retire in 6 months. Use them and help them get ready, but then you're going to reap lots of benefits for your organization.
Wonderful. Nan, wh- what is the legacy you want to leave in the world?
Um, I think that I didn't stop. working, and just that I tried to go off and do something that had purpose. But I don't really think that much about my legacy. But I think the fact that I'm doing this now is, it has given me great purpose and really, so I think that's probably it.
That was one of those conversations that will stay with me. Now, Ives didn't just talk about retirement. She pulled back the curtain on what it really feels like to move from decades of structure to a life that suddenly has no script. What struck me most is how honest she was about the excitement, the silence, the confusion, and eventually the spark that came from helping others find purpose in the same season that she found so uncertain. And that's the beauty of this journey. We don't need to have all the answers. We just need to start asking better questions. And maybe that's where it begins for you too. So here's something to think about this week. What would it look like to design your future with intention, not someday, but now? What lights you up enough to wake up, bake, and jump out of bed in the morning? And if you had 30 years ahead of you, what would you do with them? Because you are not here just to post. You are here to grow, to geek, to reinvent. This is what Beat in Retirement is about. If today's episode stirred something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe, have a review, and leave a review. And most importantly, keep showing up for your own journey. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep riding the waves of wisdom and stay unretirable.